Seeing is believing, but sometimes the most real things in the world are the things we can't see. That seemed to be the motivation for one defunct theme park attraction that has ceased to exist. Of course, I'm talking about the Polar Express experience at SeaWorld Orlando. This was meant to be an annual pop-up attraction to cater to the park's holiday offerings every year. It would run from November to January consistently from its debut in 2007 until its final run in 2015. Even though it made its return to the park for 9 consecutive years, what happened to it? Was it the smash holiday hit the park was hoping for? Or was it a major flop? Well, let's find out in this very special holiday episode of ParkTwister. In 2004, Robert Zemeckis took on Chris Van Allsburg's classic story, The Polar Express, grossing over $314 million in the box office, nearly doubling the film's budget. As dated as some of the animation may appear by today's standards, for the time, it was very visually impressive. The use of motion capture work was something that hasn't quite been done on this scale before in a feature-length film. It would later go on to pave the way for Avatar years later. It wasn't until only 3 years after The Polar Express's release, though, when SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment jumped at the opportunity. In partnership with Castle Rock Entertainment, the company behind the film, they got right to work on a way to bring an attraction based on the Christmas classic to the Central Florida area. While Disney up until now has been constantly turning up year after year the best holiday festival with Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, SeaWorld wanted a slice of the pie for themselves. In doing so, the park offered an experience you couldn't find anywhere else in the world, except maybe the North Pole if you're lucky. This was the only way to truly feel like you were on a mysterious train going someplace magical. It would be found taking up residence at Wild Arctic, serving as a temporary overlay of the building every year. Still open today, this space is home to an Arctic tundra-like theme where guests can see beluga whales, walruses, and even polar bears. The headlining attraction inside though was a motion simulator ride similar to that of Star Tours, opening at the park in 1998. Using hydraulic motion-based cabins, the storyline is that you're on a helicopter tour over Antarctica. You will get a bird's eye view of many of the animals you're about to see inside. When the ride is over, you exit down a ramp towards a quite impressive exhibit of many different animals. The transition from your simulator experience to the exhibits you see afterwards creates a cohesive theme over all of Wild Arctic. The Polar Express experience was, as I already stated, a temporary overlay during the holiday season. Guests would start their journey by spending their time waiting in the outdoor queue space before making their way inside. Once you've snaked your way through the series of switchbacks, you'll arrive to a short pre-show that'll play out. Here's the rundown of what's happening. You're a kid fast asleep, awaiting Santa's arrival, when a train appears out your window to take you on a magical journey to the North Pole. That seemed to be the story behind the attraction. Once the pre-show ends, it's revealed that the train is waiting for you in the next room. SeaWorld went all out in making it feel like a completely different attraction than Wild Arctic. The outside of each simulator cabin looked as though it was a real locomotive. Temporary pop-up houses and snowmen were also added as well to complete the look of the boys' neighborhood from the film. A second pre-show will play, this time offering a bit of safety information while you await your time to ride. While Wild Arctic offered a tamer, non-moving ride vehicle for those who are prone to motion sickness, the same was offered here. Just let an on-staff train conductor know ahead of time. Now it's time to finally board. Once you get inside your ride cabin, or train passenger car, you'll notice how much into detail the park went into recreating such an authentic ride experience. The walls were themed to the side of the train, while the front of the room's curtain, that is lowered during each ride show, has been replaced with what looks like to be the front of the passenger car, featuring the sliding door as well. As soon as the ride starts, the curtain at the front of the room lowers exactly how it does on Star Tours. The video starts playing immediately through a window at the front of the room. Much like the pre-show, it's made up almost entirely of scenes from the movie. Things start off simple enough. The conductor, played by none other than Tom Hanks, takes your ticket before urgently telling you he will not be late getting to the North Pole, and he's never been late before. In a suddenly jarring moment, you cut rapidly to the train racing along the track as the ticket can be seen floating through the icy air before eventually being caught in the beak by an eagle. You follow the ticket through a few more gags taken directly from the movie before nearly colliding head-on with a cave. Following this, you were sent on a speeding journey down Glacier Gulch, which may very well just be the most intense part of the ride so far. The track ahead seems to be iced over, and then you come to a halt. Suddenly, with no explanation, the ice seems to begin to break. In a quick reaction, the conductor yells at the engineers to get the train moving. After this action-packed scene of the train quite literally skating on ice, you make it back onto the tracks in just a nick of time. In one final moment featuring a fun musical segment to the film, you arrive to the North Pole at long last. After you supposedly arrive and come to a stop, the boy from the film stumbled across a single bell that flung off of Santa's sleigh. Only those who believe can hear its sweet sound. "I believe," he says. Santa himself approaches from behind. After holding the bell high in the air shouting the first gift of Christmas, the elves cheer and the ride is over. Guests would then exit down towards the same animal exhibits that accompany Wild Arctic year-round, only this time it's themed to look like you've arrived to the North Pole. There's a big Christmas tree as well in the center of the room, and to cap it off, you could even meet Santa Claus here before exiting through the gift shop which sold replicas of the bell from the film. As part of the experience, you could also catch Christmas carolers dressed as conductors that would perform outside the ride's entrance. In addition, there was a nice model of the Polar Express itself that sat for photo opportunities just outside. While the ride itself only lasted about 7 minutes, being a montage of nothing more than some of the best moments from the movie, it still offered a fun little holiday overlay of an old attraction. But why did it fail? Why can't you visit the North Pole anymore on a mysterious train ride to get there? The short answer is, it received poor reception from visitors in a park that already had some of the best thrills in the state. The idea of a temporary filler attraction may work better at a place that needs the extra boost in attendance, and that's what happened. Since its departure from SeaWorld, the same ride video has shown up at various regional parks across the country, such as Dollywood, Cincinnati Zoo, Warner Bros. Movie World, and still to this day, still currently runs at Stone Mountain Park near Atlanta, Georgia as a 4D experience. The ride video and its pre-show was never owned by SeaWorld. It was provided by Cimex iWorks, a company that specialized in distributing 4D films to sell the royalty license to different parks, museums, and facilities. Your local science center may very well just be playing one of their movies. By having the ride footage developed by a third-party company, you get a low-budget, slapped-together montage from the film that doesn't add anything new. Essentially, if you've seen the Polar Express at home, you've ridden the ride. Not to mention it cuts down the film's narrative so much into such a compact runtime that it loses major story beats along the way. The character Billy is completely absent here, so there's this odd jump in time from the conductor taking your ticket and him shouting out the window to alert us to keep moving. This is just the first inconsistency though. We almost immediately cut to the ticket floating through the air away from the train with no explanation of how we got there. Before having time to breathe, we're thrown back into the runaway train, being a huge jump in time. All these random cuts won't make sense to the average person unless you've seen the movie. It also doesn't make too much sense why you constantly get a view from the outside of the train when supposedly you're supposed to be riding aboard from the inside, hence why the park worked so hard to theme the surrounding walls of the ride cabin. It honestly would have been better and made more sense if they reanimated the scenes from the movie, but with a fixed camera so you're constantly seeing everything from in front of the locomotive happening around the track. With a little bit of work, it could have been done. Reviews from guests who rode the attraction were also mixed. The ride had a 42-inch height requirement, which meant younger audiences were not able to ride. This could also possibly be the reason for creating a stationary, non-moving version of the attraction to accompany these smaller riders. Another claim was that the ride was far too intense for some, causing motion sickness for those with weak stomachs. You would think being based off an intellectual property that appeals mostly to families, that it would be accessible to almost everyone. That may very well be why it failed the hardest. Despite these flaws, however, the rest of the experience still offered a great overlay that fit really well into the tight space they had to work with. It was themed wall to wall with lights, decorations, and more to make it truly feel like you had just stepped away from an epic adventure and onto the North Pole. The Polar Express experience still offered a bit more holiday cheer to the SeaWorld park that wasn't there before. Currently, they hold one of the best Christmas celebrations in the entire state of Florida. It's honestly more than enough to make up for the loss of a cheap overlay over an existing attraction. Remember though, the same experience can still be found in much smaller scale at regional parks around the country. So you can still travel to the North Pole on the Polar Express as long as you believe in the magic of Christmas. I hope you enjoyed this episode of ParkTwister. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed the video then go and hit that like button, it really does help us out. If you would like to support us even farther, you can find us at ParkTwister.com or by going and following us on Twitter and Instagram. You can also become an official Twister at Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Any contribution helps out to the channel. Or you can get exclusive ParkTwister merchandise. All the links are in the description below. Alright, thanks for watching everyone. I'll catch you here next time.